As most of you know, I've been earning a living for most of my life writing and performing comic songs. And every now and again, somebody actually has a hit record with a comic song. But it's usually a comedy performer of some kind, like your Weird Al, or back in the day in Britain, the Baron Knights, or when the Goodies used to put hit records out. Generally speaking, these were comedy records made by comedy people. But every now and again, a record comes out which is essentially a funny song, but composed and performed by somebody who we do not think of as a comedic artist. So here are 5 comedy songs by non-comedy people. Now, before we go on, a couple of quick honourable mentions of people who will not be in this list. When we get to the end of the list, some of you might well have found yourself thinking, where were Madness? I'm not including Madness for the main reason that with Madness, it wasn't the songs that were funny, it was the videos. The songs have got that, slightly cartoonish arrangement some of the time, and there's certainly a lot of wit in a lot of the songs, but the humour in Madness wasn't the songs, it was the videos. The other artist I'm not going to include on this list is Neil Hannon, aka The Divine Comedy. Merely by calling himself that, he kind of straddles those two worlds of, straight songwriting and comedy songwriting. And again, there's a lot of wit and humour in what he does, but to me, he's sort of edging into the comedy world, so he doesn't quite qualify for this list. But we will start with, oddly, the most obscure song on the list, recorded by possibly the least obscure artist on the list. 2 for the Price of 1 by ABBA. Now, this is on ABBA's last album of their primary phase, The Visitors, and it's a very unusual ABBA song in a number of reasons. 1, it's one of the ones that Björn sings, and 2, it's not just a joke song, it's a dirty joke song, with a punchline that you will not see coming and that you will scarcely believe could be a product of the same minds that brought us Mamma Mia, but you know how these bloody Swedes go on. Okay, next up we have A Boy Named Sue by Johnny Cash. Now, this is an out-and-out comedy song. It may or may not have been an influence on one of mine. Sung by somebody more generally associated with gospel and murder ballads. Next up, and staying in a vaguely country-esque milieu, we have Life's Been Good by Joe Walsh. Amiable old rascal, great guitar player, and on and off member of the Eagles. In this song, Joe reflects ruefully on the pros and cons of being a rock star a good few decades before Nickelback did. Actually, thinking about it, that Nickelback song is basically a comedy song. Not sure it's supposed to be. Next up, we have Drive My Car by the Beatles. Yeah! This is not just a funny song, it was actually intended to be one. When they were recording Rubber Soul, the album which this is the first track on, the Beatles actually regarded themselves as being at a bit of a creative impasse. They were kind of running out of ideas. They didn't want to do, love songs anymore, but they couldn't really think what else to do. And one of the ideas they had was story songs that told stories, and if possible, funny stories. And this was their first attempt at doing one. This song tells a story, and indeed it's a story which has a punchline. And then somebody slipped John and George some acid at a party, and they found that new direction they were looking for. And finally on this list, we have Sorted for Reason Whiz by Pulp. Now, Pulp almost fall into the same camp as Divine Comedy in that, they have some fairly obvious comedic leanings, and Jarvis is, of course, a great wit and raconteur, and, of course, many of his songs tell stories, and quite compelling stories, such as Common People. But Sorted for Reason Whiz is not only the funniest song ever written about drugs, it is also, for my money, possibly the only truly honest song written about drugs. Prior to this, drug songs basically fell into 2 camps. You had these sort of pro-drug songs which came out in the 60s, which are all about how drugs are going to elevate you to a whole new level of consciousness, man. And then you had the sort of panicky anti-drug songs in the 80s, you just say no's and your white lines don't do it. And then finally in the 90s, somebody wrote a song about drugs which just says, yeah, drugs are all right, if you like that kind of thing, but they're not really what they cracked up to be. Too much of them will fuck you right up, and you are going to feel like shit in the morning. All right, there's my list of comedy songs by non-comedy artists. You've probably just thought of a whole bunch yourself. Please put them in the comments, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please hit like and share. If you'd like to see more, please hit subscribe. And if you'd like to help me make more, please visit patreon.com/MitchBenn.